Welcome in Line by Line. Today with Ezra, we are analyzing a really surprising song called Free Indeed, covered by Ezra's friend Derrick Hart, written by Dave Bixby in 1969. Ezra, why did you pick that song?
Well, um, I'm a fan of Dave Bixby, and my friend Derrick Hart introduced me to Dave's music. And Dave made this album called Ode to Quetzalcoatl in 1969, and it was a very like independent album, and it like grew fans over like uh, you know 40 years. And I actually toured with Dave Bixby and Derek, one of the few tours I ever played. I was very new to performing, and my wife and I got to open for Dave, and he had all these young fans who had fallen in love with his album over the years, but like he's not necessarily known in the mainstream, and it's just cool to get to talk about his work and like maybe introduce it to some new people. And also like Dave's doing this thing where he's encouraging like young DIY people online to cover his songs, and he'll give you permission to cover his songs, and putting them on like a big compilation album called Harbinger Orchestra. And Derek's cover is on there, and I did a cover on there, and probably if you're listening to this, you can do a cover on there if you want to. So
Is there a link to sign up to it? I will put it in below.
yeah, I could send a link to more information about that for sure.
Awesome.
So free indeed. Ah, look at me, the way I used to be, caught up in worldly ways, lost so many days from growing.
It comes that point in in life where we notice that time is going away, and then we're looking back, oh, we could have used that time differently. So many days wasted. But it's usually comes when we get first time out of breath. It's like, why am I out of breath? Oh, I wasted my life.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely connect with that.
Hmm. What do you think about that?
I love the from growing. Lost so many days from growing. Um because that's where you get the I wasted that time. I wasn't growing. I was caught up in some other thing that's not growing, but worldly ways, and I like that too. That I feel like that fills in some detail about what he's telling us about. I was caught up in the ways of the world, and that was not growth. That indicts the world. That indicts the worldly ways, um, which I guess I just connect to, or that's sort of how I view like the if it's the spiritual path or the path to wisdom or deeper meaning or something. There's always a sense of like the mainstream or like the world's views are not uh, that path. Like that path's deeper than the world. Like there often seems to be a setting oneself off from the world um, on that path, which I guess makes sense because otherwise otherwise being caught up in worldly ways would be awesome because if you're in the most wise society, then all you'd have to do is whatever everybody else was doing, and you'd be super wise. But often that seems like a reoccurring thing if it's Buddhism or Christianity. I think worldly ways sounds vaguely Christian to me. um, like be in the world, not of the world. Um, seems like some kind of Christian aphorism that I've heard.
Conforming, that comes to mind.
Mm,
So worldly ways is conforming to the world, rather than looking within yourself and finding your own path. It's like it doesn't have to be path against the worldly ways, but like you grow the best of what you can offer, rather than you suppress everything you can offer and just like conform, narrow. Yeah, that one.
yes. Yeah. I feel like there's a shallowness to that, even if the worldly ways are not wrong. There's a shallowness because it's like you're only doing it to fit in, you're only doing it to go along, but it's not coming from deep within you. So it's like the reasoning is wrong, even if what you're doing is right. So then maybe that's cutting yourself off from that growth. The only way to grow is to like do this more vulnerable thing and go within and find out what you really think.
Also connecting to the name, freedom, it feels like that caught up in worldly ways from growing kind of makes me think being caught up is not being free. It's like this sort of slavery in a way. Hashtag slavery.
I really connect with this. Like when you said conformist, like the idea that it's like conforming to be caught up in the worldly ways. I really connect with that because I've actually been hovering around this idea of conformity as like the word that I most connect with is like nonconformity, the nonconformist. And that what's important about that is not that you go against the world, like whatever the world says, I'm going to do the opposite. I think that that's in a way its own kind of conformity. But it's that like it can't just be what the world says, like there has to be a dialogue. You have to have enough whatever personal integrity or something that um, you don't merely conform. You do things maybe because they're the right things to do, not because it fits in.
Yeah, agency.
So he came to me and said he'd set me free and said he died for me and that he loved me.
It made me think of Jesus.
Sure. What with the dying
Yeah,
and the love?
and coming after death.
Yeah.
Like, who has that other power, like coming and talking after you died for somebody?
One of the things that I think is interesting about Dave's album is he called it Ode to Quetzalcoatl, or it might be Quetzalcoatl. And that's the name of like a Mayan god. And I believe that that god is sort of like they had like a one god that was like both like light and dark. Okay. And then the album is about being blown out on drugs and then coming to what seems like a Christian awakening. And but it was interesting that he called it that. He didn't call it, Ode to JC. Shout out JC. He called it, Ode to Quetzalcoatl. And I've always liked that because it makes me want to like go a little deeper. So it's like, the album's overtly Christian, but then it's like, can I think about this from a different perspective? And so when I hear like this kind of Christian thing, he came to me, said he'd set me free, died for me, and that he loved me. I also think about it like in psychological terms. I think about it from different perspectives. I think about, he's caught up in worldly ways. We talked about how you need to look inside. There's some, reconnecting with yourself, not merely conforming. So like what is it that came to him? Who is this person? Like, um, what does Christ represent? And it's like, does Christ represent like the ultimate guy, the perfect ideal man who you really think you should be, or your own personal ideal, or is that, is there a personal what does that mean, like a personal relationship with Christ, etc.? And so for me, the song, uh, I've always thought of the song as more general, more I while died for me sounds overly Christian, I could see it more symbolically. And it's like, I don't know. There's something about that. What does that like sacrifice or self sacrifice mean? And ultimately, we end with love. And so I think about coming to agape, like coming to the, the divine love. And that seems like something that many different traditions have found inside as a way of transformation or growth or something. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, like with Mayan God, year 69, the awakening, it actually really dances around the idea of psychedelics, ego death,
Yeah.
love. So there are those three that kind of stand out without being named. I like, was ayahuasca discovered somewhere in the same region as Mayans were? Like, I'm vague on the
Not sure.
subject.
Yeah.
And the ego death thing, it's like, who came to him? Was it Jesus? Who died for him? He died for me. I don't know why I still think about the death of ego.
Yeah.
And love and understanding and freedom only comes after that. That's what, if not to go direction of Christian, but like explore what else could have been meant.
Yeah. Like, there's like this psychological,
Mhm.
there's this, it's like a strain of modern psychology called acceptance and commitment therapy that I
Mm.
happen to know something about. And it focuses on this idea of self as context as opposed to self as content. And then it talks a lot about the idea of the conceptual self, like the self that you imagine other people seeing, like the self that's for others versus the sort of true self, which maybe is less defined, maybe not defined, maybe kind of open. And it's more like a place where consciousness happens than like a specific thing. But like the way you're seen by others is very categorized, and like you're that and that's what you are. And so this makes me think of how that self, the conceptual self that you present to the world, has to die if you're going to be anything more than a conformist. Like if you're going to connect to yourself, in a sense, you have to kind of let that, it's like when you finally speak for yourself, what is the risk there? The risk is that other people are going to be mad or not like that or whatever. And so you kind of have to like let that the you that they see, you kind of have to like be willing to let that die. Like maybe they're not going to, you know, like this one.
Yeah. really made me think about just like going into this very angry Twitter mob and then just like, I love everybody. And seeing that Twitter mob get angry and accuse me of stuff. I don't know.
Well, that's so funny. That's so funny because that's something that Derrick and I have talked about before. It's like this thing of like it was like in the pandemic and when everyone there was massive hate and just like two teams going at it, and I'd be like talking to my friend. He lives on the other side of the country, and we're just like, I love everybody. I'm like, me too. And it's like, how come it seems like you can't say that? I was like, I know, it's weird, right?
I also like had to be apologetic for my overly positive attitude. I was like, I'm sorry. I know being so positive is annoying to people, and they're like, yeah, it seems like you're putting a distance and like you think you're better than us. And like, no, I don't. I'm
I
just
love you.
happy. It's like if I would be like, yeah, hate, and like whatever, anger, and they're like, yeah, one of us. And the moment like, I don't feel it, guys. You're not one of us. Like, oh, it's making me feel bad for Jesus. It's like the mob full of hate, reaching love. Oh my God.
So then I changed my style. It took a little while, but I made it.
I really love that line. It took a little while. Gives me so much hope. Like, still taking me that while.
Yeah, same. Yeah, this is like my favorite line because to say, so then I changed my style. It's so it sounds kind of playful to me. And like it's so like underplaying it, right? Because it's like I imagine the worst, and like the rest of the album is like, I lost my mind on drugs. I, don't even know who I am. Like I don't even know if I can live anymore, etc. And then to say, he came to me and he loved me, and then I changed my style, like as if it's just a style, how you live, and living like some, evil way. It's just a style. And I changed my style, and it took a while, you know, but I made it. It makes it sound like it's not. It makes it sound so like pedestrian and everyday. It just makes it sound like it just happens every day, and it'll just happen to you, and it just takes a little while. I love that. I love that the combination of like the heaviest subject matter with like, and then you just change your style.
Yeah, there's so much care. Like, it's like kind. It's like it's like this. It's okay. It will take time. It's also it feels from that line that Dave believes in me. Somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You messed up. Change your style, and it's okay if you fall in the process. Get up. Like you will
And you'll
get there.
make it, but I made it. I made it.
That's a good one.
World, can't you see that the truth has set me free? And I am free indeed because he said so.
Truth. Um, and again, I I'm curious about the truth because like makes me think of truth is to be discovered, it's not made. And that way, the truth I discovered has set me free, kind of, sort of thing. And then that there is this preaching kind of teaching moment where he wants to show it to others. Can't you see, people? It's like there is this truth that is to be discovered. Like if you can just see it, you also will get free. Or it could be those magic glasses that, like you put on and then you see conform, don't conform. Have you seen the leaf? Or like it's alive? What's the
Yes.
name?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that we're it makes me actually it makes me think of Buddhism a little bit, because it's like the Buddha becomes awakened, and then the thing to do is to turn around and try to help other people become awakened. So he's just sort of any other guy, becomes awakened, and then it's like, I have to help other people become awakened. And there's even sometimes this story in Buddhism of like, at first the Buddha is like, maybe nobody will understand except for me. Maybe I'm the only one who'll ever understand. And then kind of was like, nah, like some people will understand. Like, I gotta try, right? Like, I'll try. And like, I know some people, they'll probably get it. We'll start with them. And it's like, I think that that's a very natural, like part of any insight. Yeah, like what you were saying really made me think of just the idea of insight, that the truth is something that's discovered, and if it sets you free, it's like he's figured something out. It's like a true insight where he becomes free, like he's given agency by the insights. Oh, the world doesn't actually work that way. That's not real. This is real, and this is actually makes more sense now. And then you see all the agency you get from that. It's like, hey, I actually don't have to take drugs all the time or whatever, and then the thing, and then I just like the tension it builds, in a sense, to me, where he was caught up in the worldly ways, he's kind of indicting the world, and then he's saying, world, like, listen to me. Listen to me. What about me? Like, maybe I have something to say to you. Like, I was conforming to you, didn't work out for me. Can't you see that there's something else going on? Like, can't you see that you're off track, kind of thing? And free indeed. What do you think of free indeed? I am free indeed, because he said so. Because that's a title, so.
But like indeed, it's like a synonym of indeed. I'm legitimately free. Legit.
Yep.
Yeah, that thing. And it's because whatever before seemed like freedom pales in comparison to the experience he having right now. It was like, oh, you thought you felt free that other times where I was convinced I'm free, nothing compared to that one. That one is really free, like for real. And there is this liberation, excitement in there. I do not know who he said so, but I guess it comes to the chorus. The person who died for him. I still think it's Jesus. Kind of like I might entertain ego death though. He
And
said
those
so
could be,
sounds awfully like ego.
well, and those could be similar. Maybe those are similar things in a way. Like maybe to truly accept Jesus, there has to be a kind of death of the ego, um, of your own ego, you know, because you're kind of putting this other person, you know, ahead of yourself. You know, it's not like you're like, I want Jesus to come into my heart so I can push him around and tell him what to do. It's like, no, it's like, you know, he's there to tell you what to do. Um, and again, I think there's something about that the way of speaking, the free indeed. I'm legit free, guys. That again, it's like this, like kind of, it's like such a light interpersonal way of talking that I think makes it inspirational because it's like no big deal, but everything, but like the biggest deal, you know. And um, oh, and I was thinking about how the freedom you're saying the freedom now like the freedom before pales to this freedom. I was thinking about how, you know, when people are kind of nihilistic and when they're angry and maybe I would even say like immature and you're sort of acting out at the world, it's like freedom is the freedom. Like I have the freedom to take drugs. Like I have the freedom to get fucked up and, you know, whatever. I have the freedom to, you know, act out sexually and take drugs and whatever. And then it's like, yeah, no, the freedom to like live a good life is actually way better. Freedom. You're like, that's real freedom. And what I thought was freedom, that's actually the prison, you know?
Yeah. Like even doing good deeds because there is a leash on you, that's still not freedom. Freedom is like, oh, I want to do that, like because like I actually see the bigger picture now. Yeah, it makes me again think about those beautiful brochures that Jehovah Witnesses were given to people, and I was like, can please, mom, can we please be Jehovah Witnesses? I really love those smiling people working in a field, being happy. They look so free. And like life was really shitty at the moment. And my mom was like, oh, that's not real. That's not real. It's like it would be real if everybody would be Jehovah Witnesses, but like reality of Jehovah Witnesses, like people get annoyed by them because they seem condescending and stuff. And
Right.
like, like you know, shut out all your Jehovah Witnesses. So like, and he's like, I'm free indeed because he said so. Kind of reminded me of Jehovah Witness.
Sure.
It's like, but it's not the same. It's like, I actually, when I saw those brochures, I felt that happiness of the people and had that longing for happiness, and they seemed free to me. So it is possible. Maybe it was not reality back then, but there is something that comes with the feeling of being blessed. Oh, I see it. I get it now. I like that excitement and that energy, kind of like I get goosebumps. That's how awesome it feels like even imagining that. Yeah, I kind of want to feel that free indeed. I do want it.
This makes me think of like how I think freedom is a really misunderstood concept often. Like I'm thinking of like George Orwell, 1984. A freedom is the freedom to say two and two make four. Freedom is the freedom to be in reality. Because in 1984, they're trying to control his brain to make him say two and two make five and really believe that, to make him really believe a lie. And he says freedom is the freedom to say what's true only. So I think people think of freedom like this unconstrained freedom, like freedom with no ground. And it's like, that's prison. That's hell.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom requires ground. So it's like I think of like the nonconformist does conform to reality,
Yeah.
just not people's ideas about reality, actual reality, you know?
Freedom to see beyond whatever was taught to you as reality. But like the moment it's still it really reminds me like they leave, like when he puts on and he sees the reality. And then if you take action based on maximal understanding of reality, that's freedom.
Yes,
If you
yes.
like everything you do is your own agency, your own choice, because you understand exactly what your actions will lead to, like the maximum amount of knowledge. That's freedom. Like I don't know, like it's all
Yeah.
kind of connected.
Yeah, and I think that that's hard sometimes for people to understand because it's like that true freedom in that sense is freedom to live in accordance with reality, but reality pushes back. It's like it's not like you control everything. Like I'm free and I just make up my own, delusional dream world. It's like no, real freedom is being in real reality so that it pushes back, and you understand something about how it pushes back so that you can have the maximal agency in it. There's no such thing as infinite agency or like, you control everything isn't a thing, you know?
Do you remember Matrix,
Yes, yeah.
where at the end he understood that reality is a code, and then he became so free he could not die, basically. That's how free
Yeah.
he
Yes.
became.
Right.
So
Yes.
like even Agent Smith could not like do anything
Yeah, he
anymore.
flies. I mean, at the end of the movie, he like flies away.
Yes. So that's freedom, is navigating the actual reality. But first you have to like take the right pill, maybe. It's like, kind of like the song was written way before Matrix. So
Well, and I also think of because he said so, that brings up to me like that is very biblical to me. That's bringing up to me like the book of John, uh, uh like the idea of the logos because it's translated as the word. It's like the word was, with God and the word was made flesh and it's like but the word is actually logos and so again it's like because he said so makes me think of that the idea of the logos and like Jesus was the logos and all that stuff which again points back to this same thing where you could also interpret logos as this thing like the truth the actual reality and yeah, and then that because he said so, it's calling to that. It's also calling to me to like, God inventing or creating the universe in the Old Testament through speech, like a word makes things. So it's like he said so, it's real, it's a real thing. I don't know.
oh, so in that sentence, in that phrasing, free indeed because he said so, it's like he's united now. Like there is this unification because this he said so agency power with freedom together. I am free in one sentence, literally. I am free indeed because he said so. Because agency, basically, kind of.
Yes. And
Uh,
it's like I'm conforming to him, and the him is like a capital H type of him where it's like he knows. And what
mhm.
he said is the real thing, not whatever I thought and not whatever the world thinks. The
Yeah,
real thing, you know?
it's like breaking the pre-built uh, neural passages that were formed for a long time, like uh, you respond this way or you respond that way, like this robotic programming. Breaking free from that and having freedom to do because he said so. Before we go further, I wanted uh, to talk about science a little bit, because the truth situational assessment, and it goes like through a lot of episodes, uh, I try to kind of connect situational assessment, reality, the truth. And later science came into it because like an actual like physicist told me that science is working towards discovering what is. It will not tell you what is ought to be. It will not tell you what you should do. No, it just describes what is. It's just like takes a thing, takes a reality and describes reality, like tries to measure it, like tries to do whatever. It's understanding. It's like one dimension of situational assessment science. And like, and I was thinking, like, is opinion proper assessment of the situation? And like, it's questionable because my opinion is flawed. It's rooted in pre-programmed things. So the freedom from that and taking in reality as it is without filters of my past, let's say, that's freedom. And when you completely realize, like when you can read like without judgment, like, so because judgment is also fear connected, like you can get proper next choices, or you can do next choices in the best possible way. I mean, hopefully. Depends
Well,
on
yeah.
what your aim is.
No, yeah, I think that that's so true, and like that I think that's such a like another problem. But like we're saying, people maybe misunderstand freedom. I think there's a like major misunderstanding of science because a lot of times science gets thrown around as if like it's it's not understood like how difficult the activity of science is. It's often treated as if it's just this socially agreed upon thing. Like, well, scientists agree, so that's reality. It's like, no, that's just conforming to what some people said. Science is this activity, this philosophically rigorous activity where you're trying to remove bias to see what's actually there. What is actually there is the hardest thing to see. I think it's a quote from there's this book called like The Peregrine. It's about a falcon, a guy who like wrote this whole book studying falcons.
Mm.
It's like a deeply philosophical book if you read it that way, but I mean it's just about falcons. But he wrote the hardest thing to see is what's actually there. And so interestingly, because he said so, which I imagine so many like atheistic scientific worldview people getting to that line and be like, I'm out. That's crazy. That's talking about JC. But to me, the he said so line is like, that's science.
As
What's
well.
really there? Like it's talking about the same thing. The logos, what's really there is the hardest thing to see. I get what's really there, you know?
So freedom, like when science hear JC, it's like like garlic to a vampire.
Yeah.
It's like it should
Yeah.
not be like that. Like just like, see the thing that's written without that kind of prejudice. Uh, it made me also think to build on that idea when Buddhists, when you discover something and you go and share. That's what scientists do as well. Like if they
Yeah.
discover truth,
Totally.
they like go and share, build on that. It's like, let's say if engineer discovers how to connect two things together, they like patent it, hide it, try to sell it. That's not, it's still
Right.
a discovery, but like it's really really secret now. um, because it's like biased with earning on it. But with science, it's published, it's maximally, it tries to be as understandable as possible. It's way easier to translate than anything else because like it's language of science.
Yeah,
Mm.
and again, I'm thinking of Orwell and the like freedom is the freedom to say two and two make four. It's like that's science, that two and two make four, right? I would consider that like a scientific discovery. because it was done in a philosophically rigorous way. That's how we come to know like mathematical truths. And then it's like, freedom is the freedom to conform to what is real, not what you would like. And honestly, pursuing the things that you would like, trying to feel how you would like to feel, trying to get what you would like to get, to me, it's like a one-way ticket to being messed up on drugs or in some kind of nihilistic relationship to the world, because the world's not going to go, oh, that's what you want? Okay, well, we'll just change the laws of physics so you can be happy. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Adjust the discovery to fit the social narrative, which is currently popular because, waves and stuff. Adjusting the scientific research. That also happened.
Yeah, that does happen. And I think that gets really hard, because then you get a kind of scientism, which is like people believing scientific things or pseudoscientific things like a religion, but they don't see it that way. And then they're just going in and kind of trying to bulldoze other people with like, well, trust our science, as if science had a capital S or something, and they just know what's true. But it's really this philosophically rigorous process that is not a social thing. It's not a conform to what the science says. That can't be seen as a social thing. That has to be seen as this like deeper process thing. So in that way, like using the religious language isn't that different from using that like scientific language. And maybe those are both ways of talking about the same thing, but maybe in both cases, religious enlightenment or scientific enlightenment, maybe in both cases, it's actually a rigorous process that one goes through. It's not some like social, like
blind conformity.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that.
Exactly.
Imagine all sheep like going just blind, like with blindfolds as well. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, exactly.
A herd of sheep with blindfolds on. Ah.
So because he said so, and then because I changed my style, it took a little while, but I made it.
I like that.
That's interesting, because now it's kind of saying I'm free because I changed my style, which might actually support what we're just talking about. The idea that it's this process. It's not like I now have a new belief, like a new sentence in my brain, a new proposition that has a truth value, and that is why everything is okay now. This is like, it's a thing you have to experience, you have to go through, something you have to do, a rigorous process where you figure out what's, real.
Growth doesn't happen overnight. Like epiphany can happen overnight, but you're still kind of preset in your old ways, so you have to like follow your epiphany, let's say.
Yeah. That's like the growth move, right? And that's the difficult part. It's like I don't know, for some reason that just like I got this image of like people having epiphanies all the time. Like maybe it happens to everyone every day, but they just ignore them. Like, oh, if I really went with what I just saw right there, I'd have to change my whole life. And that's like way too much. So I'm just going to pretend I never saw that.
It's interesting how at the beginning he said, I lost so many days from growing, because he understands that growth takes time. So that one.
Yes, I think that's one of the most moving things about the song, is that it's this thing that's not saying like you have to like, it's not saying that there's like this easy solution. And it's not saying that like you have to move a mountain necessarily either. It's just saying like get in the game. Like it's going to take time. You're going the wrong direction. Just turn around. Just like come like just go the right direction. Like that's not that hard. And then it takes time and then you'll get somewhere.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ezra. Guys, please check out all the links below. Ezra's band Mad Gleams. I think you also covered one of his
One of Dave's
songs.
songs.
Yeah, one of Dave's songs. I will provide that link also below, and how you can actually cover Dave's songs.
Yes. Yep.
And be like recognized and published by Dave. Like Dave will see it for sure, right? Dave?
Yep.
I would hate to put words in your mouth. You're free. I can cover it. I'm also a singer. I like that song. Yeah. People enjoy free time. Enjoy free time. Use it however you want. It's just like
use it to grow.
Definitely. And bye. The singers can go cover Dave's song and they will be featured on Harbinger Orchestra. Right?
Yeah.
That's
I'm not sure exactly how it works. Like, if just anybody can get in, or if you're
Dave gets like thousands of people who watch line by line.
Yeah, it's like you might be like, you might have to kind of apply. Like here, I'll send a link in the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a link to like join it, and then there's other parts on his site where they have like interviews with different people and stuff.
Okay, I keep it open. Thanks, man.
Yeah, it says submit your original music. Anyone can submit. Anyone can submit.
Okay, that's awesome.
Might be rejected if,
Anyone can submit. Rejection is on you.